welcome to the Finding Wisdom Show. I'm here with, I'm sorry, welcome to the Finding Wisdom Show again. I lost my train of thought for a moment there. I'm here with a very special guest whose name is Lennon Cross. He's a career advisor, and we had a part one before where we were talking about the cover letter and a little bit about resume writing and what's going on in the economy and how it's affecting us out there looking for work. The name of the show is called Coloring Your Parachute, and we're going to talk right for this show. We're going to talk about the details of marketing yourself in today's market. And that could be a challenge, right, Lennon?
Very much so, and thank you for having me again.
You're welcome.
And part of what I think is crucial to discuss, since we were touching on this topic before, the market is highly competitive. It is Darwinism, survival of the fittest. Don't mean to sound overly dramatic, but it is. I think people need to know that. And therefore, with that said, I think we need to know how is it that we're going to market ourselves? Because it's really about marketing. A resume is not a laundry list of things we did or duties we were paid for.
Right.
It is basically a showcase of our skills. We're advertising what we are selling to the marketplace, to the job market, but that has to be done rather creatively, has to be done quantitatively, and it has to be done almost with the thinking cap of a copyright editor, the
Okay.
folks that are involved in writing the front page of a newspaper.
So you have to have that kind of um, perspective when you're thinking of writing your
In this competitive
resume?
market, yes. And if you feel that you don't have that, that's where you should approach a job coach that does not write your resume for you.
Okay.
And I want to repeat that very carefully.
You said that does not write your
Your
resume for
no.
you. So you're saying a lot of job coaches are writing the resumes for the
Yeah, a lot of job coaches out there, and I am
job
one,
seekers?
so I'm
Okay.
being very critical of my profession, are getting paid nice amounts of money writing these resumes for people, but what they're doing, they're using templates, cliches again. Therefore, you end up with a document that is not connected to your personality, to whom you are. They may throw in words that you may have difficult explaining if you go to an interview and you've been called into an interview. So therefore, your resume should not be written by someone. It should be somebody that sits with you and helps you write the text, almost like a ghostwriter.
All right.
And hence, we need to think that way, because if we really look at it, what is it that a resume today has to do? Grab the attention of the reader, right?
Right.
Which is usually the human resource department,
Right.
which is usually the hiring manager. And how do we do that?
Yeah, how do we do that? You just brought up a point I just thought about. Sometimes they're so inundated with so many resumes. Sometimes they even have a certain program that they go to just look at certain keywords, perhaps for the job that they put out there. Say the job is in data entry, they're going to look at how fast you type, how many words per minute, you know, what have you done before? There's certain keywords. So
Yeah,
sometimes they're not even looking at the outline and how the resume looks.
that is
So
correct.
how do you separate yourself from all these other people competing for the same job that might have the same words and your words might be a little different, but then again, the program is looking for certain types of words. So how do you
Yeah.
work around that issue?
That issue is where you need to have some sort of very broad knowledge of the English vocabulary.
Hmm.
For example, most of us like to write on our resume that we're problem solvers.
Hmm.
Obviously, that has become a phrase, a cliche, that is easily picked up by these types of software that are out there fishing and scanning for our skill sets. However, if we really want to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack, there's other ways of saying it. For example, if you're in marketing,
Okay.
you can describe yourself as a strategist in the marketing of retail apparel, understanding the customer's trends and needs. Therefore, instead of saying, I am a problem solver in the market industry, you see how's that different? So that's where you first need to really lay out your skill sets and have a job coach that really knows what he or she is doing in helping you to narrate, not write your resume. It all goes back that your resume, your skills that you are pitching must be connected to your personality. Many resumes, when I read them coming from applicants, they're rather impersonal, and immediately you can tell somebody else wrote it.
Right.
And therefore, that's where you're separating yourselves from the rest of the pack, because you really need to connect who you are.
So you're saying make it more personal.
Yeah, because look, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't need to be a PhD. For all I care, you're doing cashiering, for example, or you're doing maintenance and janitorial services. There is a creative way to stand yourself out. Just don't say, let's say you're applying for a janitorial maintenance job. Just don't say, I clean and sweep, or I vacuum and I know how to use a dry vac.
Right.
But instead say, I have janitorial skill sets that go back to 10 years of broad experience where I utilize my knowledge of maintenance, equipment repair, etc. So therefore, reducing the cost to the asset deterioration and making sure that everybody is safe, whether it be employees or visitors. So there's multiple ways of describing your skill sets that are creative, and you want people to really read what you have to sell. Remember, you're selling.
So it's like you're writing a book or you're reading a book and you're looking at the first page. So you're going to say, whatever it is you do, but you're going to add a little bit more detailed
That's
to
right.
add more depth to the resume.
Correct. And when I say quantitative, for example, many of us say extensive experience in
Right.
janitorial. What is extensive? That's interpretive. Why not say 15, 20 years of experience? Now, obviously, we've heard that we are discriminated because of age.
Right.
Well, I guess what? I can tell pretty much how old, approximately within 5 years range, a person is by reading their experience on a resume.
Okay.
So therefore, don't worry so much the focus of that. Focus more on selling in a quantitative manner. Because if you read most job descriptions, they do tell you 7, 10 years of experience and or a bachelor's degree,
Right.
associate's degree. So what does that tell you to the reader? That you don't necessarily need an associate or bachelor college degree, but if you have multiple years of experience, that is a substitute to
For the
applying for
degree.
that position. Correct.
Right.
So being quantitative is very important. We just shouldn't say extensive using general terms.
What about those job seekers that have they've moved around a bit? Because I get two sides to this. Where some employers say it's good because it shows that they're flexible, they've moved, they have a roundable knowledge because they've been different places. And then you'd have the old-fashioned employers, I guess I could say, who want to see that you've been at certain company XYZ for a long time, say 15, 20
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
So what do you say for a job seeker out there who has been with the company and shows continuity, and then the other job seeker who isn't showing continuity? What should they do?
Good question. It's a cocktail, a mixture of both.
A mixture of both?
Because you have to almost make both parties happy. We have the baby boomers, or what I call the old school, still out there in many management positions, and then we have the new school, the Generation X or the Generation Y out there looking at interviews and potentially hiring you. So the question, what is hopping around? I would say that the longevity of being in a job is between 3 to 4 years, and that's respectable. But if you've been skipping around a year, 6 months from job to job, that kind of does not show consistency.
Right.
But if you've been in a job for 2, 3, 4 years, and then you've gone to other jobs, that's sort of a good mixture because it shows that you are not static in one location, and you were going from different jobs, picking up new skill sets. Something that happens to many of us, what happened to me, why I became a job coach.
Yes. Why did you?
Good question. There were lousy job coaches out there, and I was very unhappy with the quality of job coaching that I was encountering. I came out of a 20-year career with New York Hospital and Cornell Medical College. Never wrote a resume.
You never.
Never wrote. I obtained my position by basically who I knew.
Who you knew.
Who I knew.
So that still works. Who you know helps
It
you to
still
get the
works.
job.
It's called networking. Aha.
Right. Social networking.
Social. Now we've added that social
Right.
network. So we brought it into the new millennium, social
Right.
networking. But it's still networking. It's who you know. So I obtained my first professional job right out of college,
Right.
with basically on who I knew. No resume required.
How lucky were you?
Isn't that nice? But wait a minute, the story gets bad now.
It gets bad.
Yeah, guess
You didn't
what?
have the skills.
I didn't have a resume when I
Oh.
was let go. I was downsized.
Okay.
And that happened to me back in 2000 with
Okay.
the bubble burst, the first
Wow.
round of the recession that we have today.
Okay.
And therefore, when I was downsized, I realized I'm in trouble. I didn't know how to write a resume. Guess what I did? I put an objective on my resume on the recommendation of a job coach.
And is that how you learned about that objective?
I waited 13 months to be picked up
13 months.
to find a job
Mm.
until I finally came across a job coach that I called a job coach from hell. And I called a job, and I won't
A
say
job coach
from
from
hell,
hell.
and I won't say his name only
Okay.
because we become good friends. And the reason I say that, he put me through the ringer. And by
Mm.
putting me through the ringer, I
So he was
realized
good.
he was very good,
Okay.
but it was intimidating when I first came across this gentleman.
Okay.
And therefore, I was absolutely flabbergasted what I was being requested to do. And the one thing he would say to me, you're never going to find a job if you keep putting an objective.
Oh.
Sell yourself well, market yourself well, and you see what happens, and combination with networking. Hence, that ended my 13-year dry spell. My 13-month dry spell, sorry, not years.
Wow.
So, and therefore, I began to realize, wait a minute, why is it then all that I've learned, I put it into sort of a pedagogy, a formula that I can teach others, because what I was encountering, I'm sure many are also encountering, not knowing how to market themselves. And therefore, it's with this formula that we showed in the first session, and that is, how do we market ourselves? And it all comes down to this. If I were to sell my pedagogy or my style of job coaching, it comes down to this slide. And I realized this is it. This is the holy grail for me in teaching job coaching. Making sure that our skill sets are transferable. I can go anywhere. I could be at a Starbucks. I could be under a tree. I could be in a corporate boardroom and so on. I could be in academia. But my skill sets must be transferable, must be marketable, and most important, I have to show that I can produce revenue or cut costs. Better yet, the combination of both. So as I market myself, I got to make sure that I am an asset, not a liability. And therefore, that's what brings us today. A good
Right.
question was raised, when you are selling yourself, should you exaggerate? Should you embellish yourself? What do you think is the answer?
No.
No, because you got to back it up.
Right.
You have to be creative the way you market yourself, but you always got to back it up, because just in case you're asked to take a pre-employment test of your skill sets, uh-oh,
It'll show.
you don't have Uncle Charlie to help you write that business letter.
Definitely.
You don't have, the job coach telling you how to use MS Office Excel 2007
Right.
and use multiple templates. So you really have to know what you're doing. But if you know what you're doing, then sell it well, sell it creatively, sell it in a way that away from the pack, because that's really the message out there today.
Okay. So writing the resume, getting it completed, sending it out. Do you think that a person should follow up with that resume that they sent out? Should they follow up through an email and say, I just wanted to make sure, did you receive my email regards to this job position, so forth?
Yes, I absolutely believe you should always follow up, and the least intrusive way is through an email.
Okay.
Because you should wait at least from the first time you send it, about 5 to 7 business days from the time you sent it, and follow up with an email that basically says, just making sure you are in receipt of my resume. I'm still very interested in the blank whatever position is, and therefore please don't hesitate to contact me if you require more information. And that's a good way of sort of following up to see. Most of the time you will see, remember, don't take it personal if you do not get a response. Many human resource departments out there are extremely overwhelmed. And so 50% of the time you will receive a response and say, yes, we are in receipt, but we're in the hiring process, so we'll contact you. But by you doing that, it shows that person at the HR department that you are really following up and you're really interested. It may trigger them, if your skills are appropriate for the position, to be called in for an interview.
Okay. I have a question. I'm going to go backwards a little bit. When a person's looking for work, say a college student's coming out, summer's coming up, we have all types of people that are unemployed looking for work. What is a good way to look for work today? I mean, years ago, they'd say go to certain buildings, go inside, see what companies
Mm.
give your resumes. Um, and that was one method. And then there was another method where, you look in the newspapers. But if you've noticed, you're looking in the newspapers, you don't really see that many jobs.
Right.
And now you have to go online and go to search engines. What's your suggestion
Uh,
of these times that we're living in? How should we look for those potential employers for that right job?
Good question. I always answer this. The internet and the computer is not a job machine.
It's not?
No.
Okay.
So basically, if you're spending more than 20% on the internet seeking employment, it's not going to yield very much. It's not going to get you far. Because they're
Why
not
do you say that?
meant. Well, the whole process become overwhelmed, corrupt. I mean, you have to realize what happens today when you have your resume. This is something very important. You should not have your full home or mailing address on your resume.
So you shouldn't have
If
your
you're
full
gonna
home
put it,
in.
no.
Mm,
Why?
okay. Why?
Because you have two other characters besides job providers looking at this information.
Two other characters.
Two other characters. They're not very
Besides
friendly and
job
nice.
employers?
Yes.
Explain that. I need to know what you mean
Well,
by that.
identity thieves.
Oh, identity theft from a
Ah.
resume?
Oh, absolutely.
How does that happen?
If I can have your full name, home address, phone number, and email, I can come up with your social security in no time. I have
That's
just
true.
stolen your identity. And the other people that are sort of fishing for this information are marketing firms.
Marketing firms.
Marketing firms. Remember, in that resume, I can learn a lot about you.
Right.
Linda Singh,
Yes.
of Indian descent. I'll send you India Air advertisement.
Okay.
Visit India. I know
Right.
you're a woman, so I'll send you women's magazines.
Okay.
So I'm basically, all that information becomes a marketing sort of treasure chest. And those are the other folks that are really out there looking for that information. So you ought to be just very simply put your name. If you happen to live in Flushing, Queens, just put Queens, New York, no zip code. Not required. Nobody's writing you a letter or a text or a postcard. They're either going to phone you or email you saying, please come in for an interview.
That's true.
So therefore, be very careful as you're introducing your resume to the public. If you're going to job or career fairs, the same modus operandi should be applied.
How does it work when you go to these job fairs? I haven't been to a job fair in a long time.
Yes, job fairs. They have a very interesting history.
Okay.
Job fairs were really, many years ago, many millennium, were geared to give people employment opportunities that sometimes were not really opened up by HR departments. Then came the big box retail sector, and they realized that in order to keep unions away from their organizations, that they needed to open up, that their job opportunities was open to the general public. Hence, they began to participate in job fairs and career fairs as a tool of keeping unions away from their location.
Say
That
that
be-
again. Repeat
that
that. I need
became a
to get
very,
that.
very
I don't
ugly
think I
game.
heard you right.
Yes,
Did I hear you right?
yes.
Say
That-
that again.
That was one way of retail, big retail, to
Big
keep
retail to keep
unions
unions.
out of their sales floor in gathering employees to sign up and starting a local chapter. Because if you can prove that you are communicating to the general public of your employment opportunities, hence you're covered by law. So therefore, that became in
So they
human
don't really
resource.
care.
No, that became the open door policy in human resources in the retail sector. Because if you go today to job fairs, what do you get? And this is very frustrating for those that go. We're not accepting resume. Apply online. Hence, why do you need to be there if that is the case?
Right. If you're accepting online, why?
Right. They have usually
And that's what they're getting when they go to a job fair?
most
Apply
likely-
online?
Apply online. We're not accepting resumes.
So why are you? That defeats the purpose.
It defeats the purpose. So why are they there? The question is, people
Yeah.
got to ask themselves, why are they there in that job fair? Hence, they're doing several things. One, they're making sure they stick by the rules and regulation of labor practices. That is to
Okay.
maintain that open door policy.
Okay.
Okay? Hence, sometimes, I see the Postal Service at some of these job fairs, just to give an example. But we know that the Postal Service, in many cases, is not hiring. If anything, they're
Right.
thinking of reducing their labor force, shutting down postal offices and so on. And that's just an example. But why are they're present at job fairs? And then you see other companies that, if you've gone to enough job fairs and career fairs, you could almost recognize the same characters. But once you approach them, they usually their mantra is, "Oh, we're not accepting resume, just apply online." So therefore, it defeats that purpose. Now, am I saying that all job fairs and career fairs are the same? No, they're not. But they're far and few that will bring to the floor of the convention real job providers. You know, the majority of the time, though, we're finding that this is just basically a show.
So what happens to those people that are advertising that there is a job and they are taking the resumes? What are they doing with the resumes?
That's an ugly side of thing of what I've seen, and I'm about to tell you something that I actually saw, and I'm not saying that everybody does the same thing, but many a times when these resumes are collected, sometimes it's simply thrown in the garbage.
They just throw it in the garbage.
They just throw them in the garbage.
You work so hard because you're looking for work. You're working on your resume. You go there dressed nicely, hoping to get that job or to get that lead, and they just throw it in the garbage.
I know that's hard to muster, or
That
to
is
accept,
very
or to
hard to
digest,
master.
and I may get a lot of you folks commenting back, that's not true. But it is true. Because most of the time, the people that go to these job fairs are not the decision makers, are not the directors of human resources.
Right.
They send somebody who basically didn't want to be there, but since they're there and they know they can leave maybe an hour earlier, they want to hook up with their friends and have a good time.
Oh.
They really had no passion to being there. They sometimes don't even know what the company's offering or what opportunities does a company have. So therefore, I always question when I see somebody at a table is, what is your position in the company? Well, I'm just here because I was told to be here. Well, thank you very much. And I move on, because that is a problem today.
So I guess the advice is ask questions.
Ask questions. Listen carefully and try to find out more and more. But I still want to come back. How is it that you find jobs?
Yeah.
Now, we've heard negative things. The internet is not a job machine, so if you're spending more than 20%, that's not good. Job fairs are sometimes a game, and they don't yield very much. So how do we find a
Yeah,
job?
how do you, if you're claiming that? I mean, aren't there certain search engines that are better than others?
They
look
are,
for
and you should
jobs?
do that. It is like when you're an investor, you have to have what I call a mixed portfolio.
Okay.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So
Okay.
you got to try a little bit job search engines like Monster.com, etc. You can apply, you can go and do job fairs and be very careful who you approach and what company. Make sure to try to get a list of the companies that are going to be present at a job fair and find out from their website if they really have openings or opportunities, or are they expanding in other markets. So you got to do your homework.
Okay, so you're saying, so before you go to the job fair, find out who's going to be there, and then go online and research if there really is a job that exists.
Yeah, because again, I
Wow.
go back and I'm not picking on the Postal Service, but if I know that they're not hiring and they're closing down and they're, diminishing and they soon may eliminate their Saturday delivery, why would I want to go to the Postal Service and find out if they have employment? It just
You-
doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
So therefore, you have to be also a very good researcher when you're looking for jobs. You need to find out who's hiring, and if they are the opportunities they have matching my skill sets, okay? So that's one. The other one goes back to the old-fashioned way, and I know this sounds going to sound old school, face-to-face, networking. Every job I had ever since I graduated from high school, I obtained through networking, not one through classifieds. And mind you, in my days, there was no internet. We had microfiche and the old newspaper. So
Okay.
obviously I couldn't go onto the internet and find for a
Right.
job. However, I did it the old-fashioned way. Who did I know? Who was hiring? Who knew somebody who was hiring?
Okay.
And today, that same concept applies.
So basically, you're saying do the resumes, go to the certain search engines, research about the job fairs, and be more aware of where your resume is going, and be more put more of a accountability on these people that are offering the jobs
That's right.
instead of just taking their word for it.
You have to diversify your approach. So don't just use one methodology, use multiple methodologies.
Okay.
Know how to split the pizza pie of job searching. You know,
Yeah,
maybe
that is
I'll,
a different way to look at this whole
yeah, I
job
mean,
search.
yeah, because I know that if the internet is only giving me a certain percentage, I may just dedicate one slice of job searching to the internet.
Right.
If I know that reading classifieds through newspapers and so is another slice. But if I know that half of the pizza pie is through networking, guess where I'm going to spend most of my time?
Networking.
Networking, because if I'm
Wow.
hungry, I want half of a pie, not just one slice, right?
Right.
So
of
therefore,
course.
that's the whole concept, knowing how to diversify and know your job hunting procedures, because that's how you're really going to have not a guarantee you're going to find a job, because there are no guarantees today, but you're going to have a better edge in finding employment.
That is so great. I've learned so much from having you here today. I'd like
Thank
to
you.
ask you to come back to the show. Our show's about to wrap up. Is there any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with the viewers about looking for employment beyond what you said today?
I'd like to share with your viewers that you have to trust yourself. You have to really sit down and take stock, like inventory of what your skills are. Once you've done that, you're going to find it much easier to market yourself.
That is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching the Finding Wisdom show. We hope this program today has helped someone have a little bit more knowledge about how to go about looking for a job and stay motivated. The economy's bad, and it's challenged to get work right now, but stay motivated. The more motivated you are, the more things will come to be. Thank you again for watching the Finding Wisdom show. Thank you, Lennon, for being here and sharing your wisdom with us. And see you next time.